Hello, everybody, and welcome again to the Purple Science Podcast. I'm Srishti Chipde, your host, fellow learner, and explorer. I might have mentioned this before that one of the best things that has happened to me during my undergrad days has been finding an amazing peer group. We all have chosen very different career paths, but we always make it a point to do this exchange of information from time to time. And these interactions have been highly rewarding and helped us get a wider view of the field that we work in and about life in general. In the coming series of episodes, I will introduce you all to a bunch of my friends who all come from very different spaces and have all kinds of perspectives and stories to share. In this episode, you'll be listening to one such great friend of mine, Syeda Nooreen Fatima, who is currently pursuing her master's in Biological and Biomedical Sciences at University of Minnesota in Duluth in the US. Since the time that I've known Nooreen, I know that this has been her goal to study biology in the US, and she has worked hard every day to achieve this. I'll not say much, you will feel the energy in the conversation. Now, this might not be all that we can and we did talk about, but I think this conversation will give you a window into life of a student who has recently started a career in science and a student who is studying science abroad. I think and I hope that you will find this conversation helpful. So let's move on to the episode.
Noreen, you've had a lot of interesting educational experiences so far, but what are some experiences in your undergrad that have been fundamental in sort of shaping your life as it looks now?
So, there have been a lot of experiences which have shaped my life as it is right now. But one thing I would like to start with is when I joined my undergraduate degree, I remember my dad saying to me that anybody can pass an undergraduate degree with flying colors, but if you want to stand out, you need to do something extraordinary. So, like, apart from classes, apart from assignments, like, you need to do something else which makes you stand out from the crowd. So that stuck with me throughout my undergraduate journey. And I always had this thing that I always wanted to study abroad since I was in high school because of the numerous amounts of opportunities present there. So I wasn't sure in the beginning whether my parents would allow me to go abroad or not. But one fine day they sat me down and we had the talk, you know what I mean, right? So they accepted that, on just one condition. They were like, you got to get a fully funded scholarship and that's how you're going to go abroad. And I understand that because, in India, like coming from a middle class family and everything, you need to understand like how expensive the education is abroad. So from the next day onwards, like I was so happy, first of all, that I got permission from my parents to go abroad that I literally didn't sleep that night. So from the next day onward, I started looking for prerequisites for a fully funded scholarship. And that way, like I kept doing things in one way or the other as I got opportunities to build up my profile for my masters. So in the first year we did a lot of things from college, like workshops, seminars, hands-on trainings and stuff like that, poster presentations and stuff. So I already had few of those things in my bag. And in second year, like how COVID started. So the one thing I lacked was a publication. So that was what my next step was to get. And then through that, I landed up in an internship, out of which, under my mentor's guidance, then I got a publication in cancer research. And then I started, like me and my friends, we started Samyojana, as you know, with Dr. Chala. And under his guidance, we read a lot of research papers. And that's when I realized I can learn the latest and very cool discoveries in science by just reading research papers, like stepping out of your bookish zone and finding something exciting and interesting. So that is where, I was like getting deeper into science, like my interest was inculcating with all these experiences. Then for my fifth semester, I had this research experience where I worked with zebrafish. We did gene editing using CRISPR-Cas9. So that is where I realized, I like molecular biology, and this is probably what I want to do for my master's. And so by this time, I had built my profile, right? Like all these things which I did, I would like to call these assets, because as an international student here, you need all those things in your profile. Then I got selected for the Global Undergraduate Exchange Program, which is a student exchange program. And students from all over the world are selected to come to the US and spend a semester to study. And from India, only 5 students were selected. So I was very honored to be selected for this program. And it was a very beautiful experience. And while I was here in the US on this program, I applied for my master's and got in with a fully funded scholarship. So sometimes I think that if my parents had not conditioned me on getting a fully funded scholarship, would I be putting the same efforts as I did? You never know, right? So that is a brief of my entire journey, like how it was until here.
So I have a lot of follow-up questions that are coming into my mind right now. First, did science happen to you like during this undergrad time, or did you like always wanted to become a scientist and pursue research?
So it's not like I always wanted to become a scientist and pursue research, because as a child, I used to think that, oh, scientists are some other people. Like, I could never be a scientist. Like, you need to be a genius to be a scientist. But I realized that's not true. And I was a pre med student as well, but that didn't work out for obvious reasons. So when I actually joined undergraduate and I chose my combination, I was always interested in genetics. So I chose just genetics, chemistry, and microbiology, right? And I didn't know what microbiology is. Just by the name itself, the study of microorganisms. But as I was studying, I got deeper into it and I started liking all these subjects, and by all these experiences, I feel like it inculcated my research over the period of, inculcated my interest into research over the period of these 3 years, the last 3 years. So no, it wasn't pre-decided, it was all natural.
Nice. Also, you mentioned about UGrad. So, if you can
Yeah.
tell us, like, quickly tell us what the program is, what made you choose it, and then if you can tell some key learnings from that experience, that would be wonderful.
Right. Yeah. So basically, it's an exchange program and it's sponsored, like fully funded by the US government. And my major motivation to apply for this program was to, get a study abroad experience in order to see myself grow personally and professionally. So it all started with the interview for this program. It was a very nice interview. Like I was preparing with my mentor and my friends like a day or 2 days before the interview. But while I was giving it, I realized my answers were not based on those 2 days preparation. They were naturally coming out because of all the experience that I had from all these programs I and joined before and discussed science. And so the few key learnings is, the first one is cultural shock is real. People told me about it, but then I was like, no, I wouldn't have any cultural shock. They're just saying and stuff. But trust me, it's so real. Like just after 3 days, I was like, I want to go home and eat Indian food. I just can't deal with this bland food anymore. So it is real, and you're gonna get through it, and you'll learn through it. And the people here are very friendly and very helpful in nature. And then the other thing is, when you like actually live independently, you got to take care of yourself. Like you become responsible of yourself because you're actually taking care of yourself, and that's something productive you're doing every day. So that is one thing, living independently and taking responsibilities by yourself. And then I had taken like two classes, among which they involved like labs and stuff. And I was very surprised to see that how students are always doing lab work by themselves. Like they're very less dependent on their professors. They figure out the experiment by themselves, troubleshoot it, and come up with a solution by themselves. Like, they're going through a process of thinking and like not just getting spoon feeded. So yeah, of course, for the lecture and grading, but other than that, they're all by themselves. And it's a very practical based learning in American classrooms, obviously, with a very strong foundation of theory as well. And so that was very intriguing for me.
You mentioned that some of your peers that you met there were
Mhm.
very independent, especially in their lab work. What kind of exposure do you think, if you had in your undergrad, that would have helped you get through these experiences better and also be independent?
So I feel like in undergraduate, when we did practical labs, we were told what to do. And here, people like follow lab handouts. Like you just give them lab handouts, and they just use that as guides, and then figure out their way through it. So I feel like if I had that experience as an undergraduate, by this time I would be able to design experiments and stuff. But that's what I'm learning right now. So it's like it's all about timing. If I had learned this before, I would be able to do something else like right now. And I see my peers and everyone, they have a lot of undergraduate research experience, and that's like the real actual research experience. For example, I also teach here. So last semester I taught genetics lab, and I they were able to like they got to do PCR, gel electrophoresis, like actually study their genotype for caffeine. So it's very interesting how they get to do this entire project for a class. And for us, like in India, we would need to go extra miles or like approach people. This is not provided in college. So if this would have been provided in college, then we would obviously have been at a different place right now in working lab for
So
lab.
basically, more freedom and more access to lab and resources.
Yeah, like
Oh,
more guidance. You know what I mean? Like,
true, very true. Just to put it in a simple way, how is life as a master student in University of Minnesota? What does your day look like?
I always say this is it's very busy and beautiful. So for this semester, I've taken four classes: bioinformatics, science communication, and core classes. And so we always have assignments to do for that. And then this semester, I'm teaching human physiology lab for undergraduate students from all years. So it was weird at first to teach people of your same age and someone who is also older than you. But then I got used to it. A teacher is a teacher. So that's going well. And then I have my research work. I work with trypanosomes, which is a type of protozoan parasites and can cause fatal diseases. And it's usually very common in Latin American stuff. So I'm trying to find out new drug targets for this. So I've got all these things, like the three major things: my research, teaching, and my classes. So I've got to set my priorities, right? So my first priority is teaching, which basically pays for everything, and then my research, and then my classes. So my everyday juggles between these three, and then I just go home and cook food and yeah, just relax.
Also, you mentioned about a teaching experience and your interest for science communication. What are some of these unique learning experiences that you've had so far and that you'd like to share with us?
So here every Friday we have seminars, and as a student who is taking a science communication class, I learn a lot from that. How to present science to an audience, like how to if you are into journalism, how are you presenting science, or if you're into industry, like how do you talk to your peers with about science. Like for example, you're working as a scientist in an industry, but around you everyone is in administrative department, so how you're going to explain your problem to them. So from all these classes, and then the all the seminars which I attend every Friday, I learn a lot about communicating science. And yeah, basically it's just about you learning it first and then implementing it.
That's really nice. Also, one question that I had in my mind and I'd really like to ask, how do you
Mhm.
see your academic and career goals aligning with your cultural background and, of course, your identity as an Indian student? Can you describe any experiences or perspectives that you feel uniquely position you to contribute to the field of science in India?
Yes, definitely. As an Indian student, I always feel like I'm representing a country. Like when I speak or say or talk about science, they're gonna assume that, oh, people from India are like that just by my experience. So I always am very careful about that, and also the cultural background and identity, it's like very important to me. And even in my class discussions, I so in my cohort, I'm the only one who is an international student and also from India. So I always try to bring a different perspective to any discussions, and those discussions are always about research papers or something, like we talk in general about science. So I always, whenever I talk, I feel like my input is very important because it's completely a different perspective, like from a different cultural background. So that is which something which I value the most.
Of course, you're a fighter, but if you can also tell us about some of your challenges or maybe opportunities that you've encountered as a student pursuing science in a foreign country.
Right. There are so many challenges. Like when you step out of your comfort zone and go to a whole different country and you start your life, there are like a list of challenges that you experience. And it's very important for students like us to talk about it so that other students be prepared for it. First of all, the huge thing is language barrier. Even though like we come from a country where English is spoken very commonly, some people might just assume things about you, that, oh, you're from India, you might not have that much experience, or like, so they might treat you differently, which you need to deal with and like overcome with it. And then when you achieve so many things and then you finally achieve your goal, you come abroad and you start studying, you deal with imposter syndrome, like, is this for me, is this the place I belong, like should I be here, should I be studying here? And then when you're all by yourself, you got to deal with these, like you got to take care of yourself and like try to, like, you are your own therapist, you know what I mean, like you have to get through this, because at the end of the day, you came here with a goal of studying and getting your master's degree and like obviously building a future for yourself. So all these things are a part of your, are a part of your package, they're gonna come with you, but you got to deal with this, you can't just sit with those and like think about those, so just get through those strongly.
Also, academically, have you had to like navigate any unique cultural or social dynamics that might have impacted your professional development?
Honestly, I feel like I haven't been, it's not been that long that I am like, experiencing all this stuff, but probably in the future I might. So for academic and professional development, for sure, as I already answered, like, if I had had a different undergraduate experience, like for example, in my cohort, all my peers, like in their undergraduate, they got these research experiences, right? And even some of them, after getting their undergraduate degree, they worked as lab technicians in the same labs as they're doing their masters now. So they know their research from before, and they know exactly what question they're answering, and they know how to do all those experiments and stuff, like, so they have that experience, and now they're just continuing that, and their work is just easier for them. But for me, as I didn't have that proper research experience in my undergraduate, I am learning at every step and every stage. And I'm okay with that because I'm a master's student. And this is, if not now, then when, right? So every experiment I do, at every step, I'm learning something new, and I do a lot of background reading. So I feel like if that would have been done in my undergraduate, that would have saved a lot of time for me now. But I'm not too worried about it.
Right. And now, if you come back to India, I'm sure that you'll have a lot of perspectives to how
Mhm.
things are done here. So, are there any initiatives or any projects that you'd like to do here, and what you'd suggest people to do differently?
I would definitely suggest people to do the labs differently, because I've also attended the lectures here and they're pretty much similar, presentation format, and the professors explain and students ask questions. So that is a little similar, but the lab format, it has a huge impact, I'm telling you, because I've been teaching labs since last 2 semesters. So just I just want to request all the teachers out there that you don't have to spoon feed the students, just let them think by their own, let them develop their thinking, the critical thinking skills that you need in a lab environment. And also, after your bachelor's or your master's, if you go into industry, into the real world, you need to think by yourself, like whatever you're doing. Or even if you go into a PhD, like you need to propose like your research, right? So you got to do it by yourself, write proposals or do an experiment by yourself. But when are you going to learn about this if not an undergraduate, right? You need to have a strong foundation for it. So that would be my project, like to change how the labs work in the undergraduate. And I feel like the learning or the teaching part here is very clear and concise. Like the students are not given overwhelming amount of extra information, and it's not like, oh, you got to score super well in exam. The major focus is that whether you're understanding it or not, and it's up to the student, like how they're going to score in the exam or not. If they study, they get the score. If they don't and they not understand, like it's up to them. And even on exams, you don't get direct questions, you get a situation, you have to analyze it and then provide a solution. So you see how it's majorly focused on the critical thinking of the student. Like the student don't just have to, like, memorize the stuff and like come and vomit it on the exam paper. And it's not like that. Like you need to actually understand to be successful in school here.
A lot of interesting points that you bring here. Of course, we all think that we don't need to be spoon fed, and we've had an
Mhm.
experience in some Yojana, of course, where we sort of proved that it wasn't about, how well we know or how nicely we know. It was about being able to use that freedom and experiment and then learn on our own, and of course, make mistakes.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that is very important indeed. Awesome. This is something I like to ask everybody, Nooreen, that comes on my podcast. I know that you
Mhm.
have had a overwhelmingly nice journey, apparently, in your undergrad. But with the experience that you have now, if you were to relive your undergrad days, what would you do differently?
I would go out more. I would ask myself to calm down, take a breath, and everything's gonna be all right in the end. I would just say that to myself. And I would ask myself to relax and like actually go hang out with my friends and like, actually live like the other part of life, where I would just say that there's more to life apart from just, focusing on your goal. And like, I would ask myself to live more, if that makes sense. Because everything, yeah, everything works out in the end. And that doesn't mean that you just sit idly and do nothing. I also believe that opportunities come to prepared minds. So you got to put in your efforts, but also like enjoy life.
Well, that was it for today's episode, and this 20-minute conversation might or might not have answered all the questions that you have in your mind about maybe studying science and abroad, or about Nooreen's experiences. But you can always write to us for follow up questions. And maybe we'll also bring you a part 2 with Nooreen, talking in detail about how she made herself an ideal candidate for the master's program that she's pursuing, her research work, and her teaching and science communication experiences. Thanks for tuning in to the Purple Science Podcast. We share stories every Tuesday. Our inbox is always open for your feedback, and our DMs across all social media platforms linked in the description are open to your unique stories. If you know somebody who might benefit from this, do share the podcast with them and spread the joy of learning.